What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily Podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. It's Thanksgiving Eve. It is the biggest week on the Canes calendar, and Lord knows how many years, with a monster game against Pitt coming up. Talked about the playoff movement and all that on the live reaction. You can check that out. We're also doing a show with Mike Ryan at 1. I am sure we will be getting into all that playoff talk on that particular show. But first, wanted to talk about the opponent, the task at hand, which is the Pitt Panthers. And look, there's a reason why it's not a double-digit spread. There's a reason why it's not a 3-point spread. Miami is the better team, but Pitt is an extremely dangerous opponent that is going to pose some problems. But look, at the same time, Miami's going to pose problems to Pitt, and we'll break all that down. First, want to shout out our friends at Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. All right, so breaking down the Pitt game real quick. Start with the offense. That's the star of the show. They are 14th in America in scoring, 35.3 points per game. By the way, all these stats are only FBS versus FBS competition. We throw away the FCS stuff. It doesn't really matter. So, Pitt. 6-1 since switching to quarterback Mason Hines-Scholl, obviously on a heater. It really starts with the offense, like I mentioned. 14th in scoring at 35.3 points per game. Not as efficient on a down-to-down basis, 63rd in yards per play, but they run a lot of plays. They run 5 to 6 more plays than Miami on average, depending what side of the ball. So they're allowing more plays on defense, and they are having more plays on offense. Shout out to Chad Burris recovering from his trip to Blacksburg, and goes to Von Donaldson, says biggest game of the season. Absolutely right. So they play at a faster pace. We're going to get more plays. They're going to get more plays. The biggest weakness of the Pitt offense is their running game, 111th in yards per carry at 3.5. Now, somebody might be watching and saying, hold on. I saw them against Georgia Tech. They ran for over 200 yards with their back, number 25, Jacarian Turner, who's a new back from Wildwood, Florida, freshman. They look like they can run pretty good. I think the situation there is that Georgia Tech's run defense is just extremely poor. It's one of the worst run defenses in America. Ranks in the hundreds in all the relevant categories. North Carolina State, you saw how their running game looked against Miami. They ran for 240 plus against this team. So you're talking about a very poor run defense for Georgia Tech. Pitt was able to run the ball effectively. Question for Miami is, are you going to play like the top 10 run defense that you've been all year? Had a tough game, toughest game of the season, really running defense-wise against Virginia Tech, which is a much better running team than Pitt. They came in as a top 25 running team. But Miami, first and foremost, needs to make sure that Pitt stays true to form as one of the worst running teams in the country at 111th in the country in yards per carry. Again, not the biggest running backs. You're talking about under 190-pound backs in Jacarian Turner. Again, the number 25 from Wildwood, Florida. And then another Florida boy, Desmond Reed, number 0, who's probably, to me, the twitcher of the two, the more dynamic of the two. He is currently injured, did not play against Georgia Tech. Got injured against Notre Dame. He's missed a lot of time. He's a smaller guy, so he gets banged up a lot. I'm assuming he'll play in this game against his hometown Hurricanes. We'll see, but he is a very twitchy, make you miss type of runner, dynamic, more of an all-purpose football player than a pure back. He's just not a big guy. So again, this running game is very much about speed, quickness, not necessarily size, and consistent domination. So that's one area where Miami has to dominate. They have to make Pitt's running game look as bad as we like to think it is, and the stats show it is. They're 38th in yards per pass, good passing game, which we'll get into. 122nd in sack percentage allowed. So these are the percentage of dropbacks that result in sacks. They are allowing sacks on 9.02% of their dropbacks. Not very good. Also turning the ball over quite a bit, 104th in giveaways. That's 1.6 turnovers per game. Another area where they struggle, and this is where I think the running part of it fits in, is they are 102nd in red zone TD percentage. So Miami, when they get to the red zone, typically scores. That's why, despite not being a very explosive offense, they're still top 25 in scoring offense. Whereas Pitt, which is a better offense, not as good in the red zone. They're more in tune with the explosive plays, 35th in the nation in 20-plus yard plays, 28th in 30-plus yard plays. One area of weakness, again, go back to the running game. They are 93rd nationally in tackles for loss allowed. You get them behind the sticks. Their running backs don't break a lot of tackles. Again, they're smaller guys. So if you can get on the other side of the line of scrimmage, get a hand on these guys, you can bring them down for a tackle for loss. Other side of the ball, Pitt's defense. Again, watch a lot of film on these guys. Watch them against Notre Dame, watch them against Georgia Tech, watch them against FSU, was the other one, NC State. So what you see is what you see with all the Narduzzi defenses. This is an extremely aggressive defense. They're sending 6 a lot. The safeties are really itching forward to fly downhill. Everybody's really flying downhill. This is a downhill aggressive defense. You have to beat them really by using their aggression against them. 63rd in scoring defense. They play a faster pace. They're allowing 25.2 points a game. They're 48th in opponent yard per play at 4.8 yards per play. So I think that's closer to what they are. Because the scoring D's inflate a little bit by their yards per play by having more plays in the game. They play in higher paced games. So the scoring defense is a little up. On an efficiency basis, they're 48th. They're a pretty good defense. Their bread and butter is stopping the run. That's their whole philosophy with Narduzzi. That's why they fly downfield the way they do. Their run defense statistically is even better than Miami. Competition hasn't been as good, but they're 7th in the nation in yards per carry defense, allowing only 2.9 yards per carry. They are very, very good. The 2 linebackers, Biles, number 3, Lewis, number 9, they're really like safeties, and they fly around and make a lot of plays. But yeah, so we look at this matchup with Miami. One thing you're watching is Miami going to just kind of hammer the running game without thinking and just say, we've got to establish the run and run into a brick wall, which is a Pitt defense geared to stop the run, or they're going to lean into the passing game, which you would think would have an advantage with the way Pitt plays defense and what the stats show. Pass rush for Pitt, probably better than NC State and Virginia Tech, but worse than Florida and FSU. So put it in between those two teams. 63rd in sack percentage, 6.08%. Miami should be able to pass protect with these guys based on that. I mean, Florida and FSU, Notre Dame, better pass rushes, did not get much pressure on Carson Beck. You expect Carson Beck to stay pretty clean based on what Miami's done this season pass blocking. 51st in opponent yard per pass, allowing 6.9 yards per pass. Again, they can be had through the air. Now, the other part of it is they're very good at taking the ball away. You saw it even against Notre Dame. They made some big picks. 12th in the nation in takeaways, 1.9 per. Miami's done a pretty good job of protecting the ball outside the Louisville game. They are at the top 30 overall in terms of just not turning the ball over, even including that game. But you obviously don't want that type of performance in this game with a team that, like Louisville, takes the ball away. Defense, I think their weakest part is allowing 20-plus yard plays, those chunk plays over the middle when they are being aggressive. 68th in the nation, allowing 20-plus yard plays. They're 9th, however, in tackles for loss. So they do get behind the sticks with that aggression. Miami is top 5 in preventing tackles for loss. So the question is, who's going to win that battle of strength? Is Miami going to be able to keep Pittsburgh out of the backfield and avoid those second and 12 situations? Or is Miami going to be able to form that wall of Mirabal and avoid some of those tackles for loss? So that's the stat breakdown. I'm going to get into some of the individuals here in a second. But first, if you are an athlete or consider yourself an athlete or just an active person, you know how hard it is to sit on the injured list with an ache, pain, injury, maybe even try to hack your own rehab comeback earlier. But if compromising your movement or performance is not an option, call the experts at the University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute. Whether it's elite competition with Miami Hurricanes athletics or just everyday movement, the University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute is the trusted choice for those who demand excellence. Set an appointment today at uhealthsports.com. All right, getting to the personnel a little bit. Obviously the big story of the season for Pitt has been their quarterback, Mason Heinschel, out of the Toledo, Ohio area. Shout out to Hassan, Jim Salas, some of our Toledo listeners from the Glass City. He's turned around the offense. The stats don't wow you. 142 rating, 14 touchdowns, 6 picks, 63% passer. Certainly not, incredible production on paper. But when you watch the tape, this is a good player. Clearly an upgrade over their prior quarterback, Eli Holstein. I think with Heinschel, it reminds me a lot of like a CJ Carr from Notre Dame, another Midwestern quarterback. And I think Carr probably has more arm talent maybe just more upside as a passer, although still early. But with Heinzel, he just has that feel like Carr for pressure, for running around, making plays. Think about some of the plays that Carr made against against Miami. Heinzel's certainly capable of making those plays against the Miami Hurricanes. He can run around. He can feel pressure. But I was impressed with his pocket passing. Georgia Tech game in particular, he made some really, really nice plays from the pocket, better than I expected him to make, quite frankly. So give him credit for what he did in terms of throwing the ball from the pocket against Georgia Tech, developing as a passer. Obviously, a lot more trouble against a very good Notre Dame team. Jacarian Turner, who we mentioned, number 25, call him Boosie Turner, I believe. He has 633 there's 615 yards. I apologize. 5.4 yards a carry. That was under 5, but it jumped up huge in this Georgia Tech game. 7 touchdowns. Desmond Reed, who I mentioned, only has 278 yards rushing, but he catches the ball. He runs it. He does a lot of different things. So their running game is very much, against smaller guys, speed. That's the name of the game. When it comes to their running game, it has not been overly effective this year, but those are dangerous players that can make big plays, and it's hot right now. In terms of receiving, they got a lot of talented receivers. No one that really, to me, jumps out. You got Poppy Williams from South Florida. Kenny Johnson's probably their top guy, number 2. And then, Katarius Hicks, another South Florida guy at receiver. He can do some things. But overall, I think this receiving core is much more about spreading the ball, being consistent, as opposed to like a Chris Bell, who is just a dominant player for Louisville and going to the NFL. I don't see NFL guys for this Pitt receiving core, but I see solid guys that have played that can consistently get open, catch the ball, and can do a little scramble drill with Heinzel. 9-5 asking if Reed's out. I don't know. That's a good question. It's not been said yet. Great question here about what KB. We missed a lot of tackles on Drone because of his size. I'd be shocked if we can't tackle the Pitt quarterback. Yeah, one of my notes when you watch, just now I'm going switching sort of the game notes here and how Miami matches up. One thing is, if I'm Miami, I am bringing speed. I am blitzing Jacoby Thomas, Zachariah Poyser, Pruitt, any fast guy that can chase Heinzel. That's what he struggles with. You watch all his games. I think some of these DB blitzes really gave him trouble because he's not fast enough to run away from those guys. He's not strong enough like Drones to just kind of shrug him off. So he can make defensive linemen look bad with his quickness, but not so much with the speed. I think that's where he struggled in the games I watched. Miami sent a lot of speed at Drones. Some of it successful. Sometimes he was able to use his strength to get out of it. I think he'd be much more successful with a Mason Heinzel, same strategy in that way. But again, Heinzel's good. So how can Pitt win this game? They got a good quarterback, playmaker. If they keep it close, they're at home in the cold. I think Heinzel can make enough plays to beat you at the end, similar to how Jennings at SMU made some plays at the end there to win a close game. Defensively, the way they attack and stop the running game, if Miami is not creative in terms of attacking with the running game and they just kind of bang their head into a wall, that plays into what Pitt wants to do. The other part is the takeaways. Pitt's one of the best takeaway teams in the country. Obviously, Beck had turnover issues in Miami's 2 losses. They're going to want to repeat that on the defensive side of the ball. Now, in terms of the Miami matchup, what I like is, Pitt's running game was huge for their win against Georgia Tech, but I don't think they're going to have the same success against Miami. They struggled against Notre Dame. Miami, even better run defense than Notre Dame, better personnel. You saw that when the two teams matched up. So that would be, I think, a strength for Miami against a weakness for Pitt, and you hope that stays a weakness for Pitt in this game. You would think it would. Same thing with the pass blocking. Pitt's not a very good pass blocking team. Miami's got some great pass rushers, so Miami will be able to get after Heinzel. I think that's going to be helpful. These receivers are good, and the quarterback's good, but I'm playing them pretty aggressively. If I'm Miami, I'm taking away these easy zone reads for the freshman quarterback. I'm making him make tough throws in man coverage. I think Miami's corners match up well enough with Pitt's receivers that you're not going to get a situation like with Chris Bell, who's a legit NFL player. I think, look, Pitt's receivers are respectable, but they're not great. They're not NFL type guys. Man up and live with the results. In terms of the pass blocking, I think that one big advantage Miami does have is Pitt likes to bring pressure. Miami's very hard to get pressure on. We're one of the best pass blocking teams. I would argue the best pass blocking team in the country. The way the offensive line is structured with those tight splits and big bodies, it's almost like a wall. And then you have Mark Fletcher in the backfield. I think you'll see a lot of him because of that 6-man pressure, and he'll be able to take one of these linebackers, both of whom are really safeties, and Biles, number 3, and Lewis, number 9. Great players. Lewis killed Georgia Tech with his pass rushing, but he's smaller than Lyle, or sorry, smaller than Fletcher. So Fletcher's able to find these guys and square him up in pass blocking, which he usually does. He has a size advantage. He can neutralize some of that blitz, and then the offensive line will take care of itself. So if all that happens, it's going to come down to Carson Beck. Can Carson Beck make Pitt pay for the style of defense they play? Can he take advantage of the time and the numbers and make big plays down the field? Can he avoid the turnovers? Carson Beck can do all those things. And it's going to be a team effort, obviously, by focusing on Beck just because of the way this matchup lines up. I think Pitt's going to put the ball in Beck's hands, and Beck is going to have to perform like he did against Florida State, a similar defensive strategy, making those guys pay with explosive plays. After the win, want to get some food? Head down to Dayland Mall Dining Pavilion, East Las Canarias. You can grab yourself some of the best Cuban food on the planet. Or Thanksgiving coming up, why don't you go to East Las Canarias Cuban Express, go to their catering menu, pick up some of these pastries, croquetas, empanadas, and spice up your holiday party. You don't have to worry about thinking, planning, cooking, none of that. Just pick something up at East Las Canarias, take it to the party, and you will be the star of the show. East Las Canarias Cuban Express right there in the Dayland Mall Dining Pavilion. Don't think. Just go let East Las Canarias cater for you and get your Thanksgiving on point. Best Cuban restaurant on the planet. All right, everybody. Appreciate you guys. We'll be back on real quick here at 1. Just want to give a quick preview of Pitt. We'll continue our thoughts with Mike Ryan. I got a lot of shows recorded yesterday. I want to see Steve Kim. We got that in the archives. The playoff reaction, got that in the archives. And then me and Pete coming live from Houston. I think he's back in Miami now, so we'll do that one on location. But again, appreciate every support. Like and subscribe. Go Canes.